On a Wednesday afternoon in Ireland, a young woman in her early 20s left her workplace, intending to head home. To the shock of her family, neighborhood, and friends, a few hours later, her death was announced. This unexpected tragedy echoed through the communities, as Ireland hadn't witnessed a crime of this nature for more than a decade. The revelation prompted a heightened sense of concern among the public, prompting the police to launch an investigation into the circumstances surrounding her death swiftly. The gruesome murder that was previously discussed was about an unpredictable incident that occurred on January 12, 2022. The shocking fact about this murder was that the crime took place during the day when everywhere was not dark. It was on an afternoon and a Wednesday. Ashling Murphy, who happened to be the victim of circumstances of the gruesome murder, was just a 23-year-old woman with a happy family in her life, a loving boyfriend with her career and hobby right at her front. She was born on 6 July 1998 in Blue Ball, historically known as Palace, a small village in Offaly, Ireland, near Tullamore. Murphy had two siblings whom they both grew up with, a brother and a sister. She had a career as a primary school teacher in a national school in Douro, a school financed directly by the state, and followed her hobby of being a musician, a gifted one at that, with her genre of music, based on Irish traditional music, also known as Irish trad or Irish folk music, is a genre of music developed in Ireland. And according to Murphy's family, she was passionate about her hobby but had to work as a teacher in the first place before she can fully venture into her hobby and turn it into her career. She was able to work as a primary school teacher as she gained a primary teaching qualification from Mary Immaculate College, also known as Mick and Mary I. She was simply a girl trying to find a hedge in her life, and at no point in time tried to harm or hurt someone, but ended up getting attacked by a strange man. The murder unfolded when Murphy was walking along the Grand Canal just outside Tullamore, County Offaly. It was exactly 3 p.m. when she was walking back home from the national school where she works as a teacher. 30 minutes after the time, while she was on Fiona's Way, a Grand Canal Way just outside the town in Cappencur was named after a missing woman, Fiona Pender. A pregnant 25-year-old lady went missing on 23 August 1996, with no traces of her whereabouts to date. Fiona that went missing on this spot alone, but several individuals too. This reveals that the spot where Murphy was murdered has been where several crimes have been committed, making it an avenue for crime. Murphy sure didn't have this in mind, as this has been the road she has been taking every day while going home from the primary school she teaches. She never knew the day would be the last she would pass the road. On her way back home along the Grand Canal, a man who appeared to be in his 30s approached her, but didn't just stop there. She attacked her too. The reason behind this attack was unknown, as both the man and Murphy had no connection and had never met before the attack. Murphy struggled greatly against the man and fought desperately to save her life by using her keys. That doesn't seem to have much effect, as she was eventually overpowered by him. The struggle makes a breakthrough in the case, as she turns out to provide a clue of evidence that could lead the police to her killer. This was nothing but pure evil, as this prevented Murphy from trying to raise her voice to call people for help. But she continued struggling and scratching the man's skin. The stab eventually led to acute blood loss, which caused her heart to stop. It was a tragic ending indeed. It wasn't long before two women who were jogging on the opposite side saw Murphy being assaulted before her death and ran to the nearest house to call the Gardaí. The Gardaí, meaning the Guardian of Peace, is the National Police and Security Service of Ireland. The Gardaí sprung into action immediately after the call was made, but on getting to the location, it was already too late. Investigation of the murder started afterwards, and they announced it was only one person that was related to the crime, and they were quite sure the perpetrator wasn't known to Murphy, which was the correct information. The Gardaí questioned some witnesses, and according to the partial description provided by the witnesses, They detained a 40-year-old man, Radu Floricel. CCTV from a store close to the crime scene proved the man was there at the time the crime was committed. He also paid using a credit card, meaning there is a record of his purchase. The 40-year-old man was later released the next day after their inquiries established that he wasn't the perpetrator. The 40-year-old man who was detained was later interviewed by a popular Irish daily newspaper and online publication that goes by the name Irish Independent. Radu Floricel claimed after his release, his life hasn't been going out well as he has subsequently received online threats from unknown individuals. He claimed he just went to the shop for milk. He later persuaded the Gardaí to clear his name completely, as he claimed to be a Romanian who moved to Ireland when he was 16 and has been living peacefully since then, would want to continue doing just that, and doesn't want to appear degrading or anything like that. A Falcon Storm mountain bike was further retrieved at the scene of the crime and linked to reports that another woman was followed by a man on a bike in Tullamore just 2 hours before the murder was committed. CCTV revealed this, but little or no information regarding the murder was obtained from this information. The Gardaí make sure not to leave any stone untouched in bringing justice to the murder of Murphy, and this was executed in their act of locating and recovering the DNA evidence from Murphy's body. This was gotten during the process when she was trying to fight for her life, and this triggered more development and significant progress was made due to this information. This progress led to a renewed appeal for information which was issued by the Gardaí. The appeal for information was to be informed by the public if any man was noticed dressed in a black tracksuit and black runners. The investigation kept getting intense as the Gardaí started arresting any individual suspected of having withheld information. The tragic death of Ashling Murphy sent shockwaves through Tullamore and across Ireland. It got everyone shocked, short of words, and sad when Ashling Murphy was killed. People were saddened by the violence, particularly against a young woman with so much potential. Leaders spoke out against such acts and said violence, especially against women, was wrong and wouldn't be allowed. The Minister for Justice described the circumstances as every woman and family's worst nightmare, as this will bring a very disturbing scenario for every woman out there as to the question of their safety. It didn't stop there. Also demanded a policy of zero tolerance of violence by men against women. Publishing statistics, it compiled on the unlawful deaths of women in Ireland since 1996. While the leaders were voicing out their opinions and backing them up, people around Ireland and the world held candlelight vigils with photos and flowers to remember Ashling Murphy. These numerous vigils and tributes were held in towns, villages, and cities, not only in Ireland, but also around the world. People in Tullamore and a lot of other places came together to honor Murphy's memory. The cries and tributes of the people were heard by the government, which made Murphy's death did not go in vain. People were so upset that they wanted the government to stop violence against women. 2 days into the chilling investigation of Ashling Murphy's murder, another suspect emerged. He was caught in the most dire situation. It turned out the man presented himself to the St. James hospitals, his body with unexplainable injuries. This wasn't your typical wounded man seeking help. Something about him sent shivers down the spines of the medical staff, prompting them to alert the Gardaí. The doctors tipped off the police. Gardaí attended the hospital to investigate, but were immediately suspicious and made a connection to Ms. Murphy's murder. The police made moves based on their intuition and started digging into the man's past and raided places in Dublin and Offaly. A quick background check was run on him, and they even took 2 cars, including a taxi that might have brought the man to the hospital, were snatched from the streets. They even searched the canal where Ashling Murphy died, looking for clues and being relentless in their pursuit of the truth, hoping to discover secrets buried beneath the Grand Canal. This mysterious guy with weird wounds, shrouded in pain, turned the whole case upside down. Was he a witness? A victim? Is the perpetrator himself or something worse? Only time and the Gardaí would tell. The Gardaí were determined to find out who killed Ashling Murphy, and this new development might have taken a sharp turn and might have led them closer to the truth, as a series of questions were left unanswered. Before the tragic event, he wasn't known to authorities in Ireland or Slovakia. He hadn't faced any legal trouble in either country, and Irish police hadn't encountered him before or crossed paths with the Gardaí before the incident. His past, both in Ireland and Slovakia, was spotless. He had a clean slate. It was as if a new criminal just emerged out of the shadows and started to commit nothing less than a grievous crime. The day Murphy was buried, which was January 18th, 2022, hundreds of people gathered in Mount Bolus, a small town in Ireland, to say goodbye to Ashling Murphy. Important leaders like the Prime Minister and the President came to honor her, along with her grieving family and friends. Even schools across Ireland took a moment of silence at 11 a.m. to remember her. During the funeral service, everyone heard how much Ashling Murphy meant to her loved ones. It was a terrible loss that took away their most precious gift.
Pray that the many vigils that took place in memory of Ashling mark the beginning of an end to violence against women. May the candlelight tributes bring an everlasting hope to all those that live in fear.
In the end, Ashling Murphy was laid to rest in a quiet cemetery near her hometown. Meanwhile, right when Ashling Murphy's funeral ends, a dark twist shakes the case. After his surgery, police officers from Tullamore attended the hospital and spoke with Puska about executing a warrant. Puska then confessed to a Garda officer, claiming he did not mean to hurt Ms. Murphy and that killing her was the result of panic. Gardaí said the confession took them by surprise as they had not attended the hospital to interview Puska. He repeated his confession after being cautioned by the officers, but the interaction was not recorded. Well, after he was fully recovered, the strange, injured man from the hospital was released, but instead of going home, he was handcuffed. Police think he killed Murphy and charged him with murder. His name is Joseph Puška. He's 31 and from Slovakia. News of Puška's arrest spread like wildfire, drawing a large crowd to the Tullamore District Court, where he appeared that evening. The atmosphere was tense. Angry people yelled and shouted at Puška while facing the court that night, grieving outside the courthouse. Inside, Murphy's family held framed photos of her in silence. The judge stated something was a bit off with Puška and got him locked up in a special jail until his next court date in a week. During the court session, after initially admitting to Ashling Murphy's death, Puška later claimed he had no memory of the events. His defense attributed this to pain medication, but the court and a medical expert raised doubts. He claimed he couldn't remember anything about the incident. Things took a turn during the trial when a pain specialist testified that the level of medication Puška was taking wouldn't likely cause amnesia for such a significant event. Ultimately, the judge sided with the medical expert. In his sentencing remarks, he stated that the medication wouldn't cause amnesia for major events. He further highlighted that Puška's initial confession was delivered genuine and showed no signs of confusion. Could this be a memory-clouded or calculated claim? Well, it's only a short time before we know. It was also highlighted that one eyewitness said they had seen Mr. Puška on top of Ms. Murphy with her legs kicking out underneath him. When Puška saw the witness, he shouted at her to go away. The court heard. This was more evidence that the woman was indeed an eyewitness, and her confession might be close to the truth. Police also arrested another guy that day for hiding clues, but they let him go soon after. So now Puška is the main suspect in Ashling Murphy's death. Hopefully, this means things will finally be fair for Ashling Murphy and his family. Puška, with his face mixed with emotions, was remanded in custody at Clover Hill Prison. The judge keeps Puška locked up until his next court date. He is due to appear again in court on January 26th. Meanwhile, Gardaí arrested another man earlier that day on suspicion of withholding and hiding evidence, but released him and let him go without charge. The investigation into Ashling Murphy's murder continues, with Puška now the prime suspect, and only time will tell if Pushka is brought to justice for Murphy's death. This development brings a ray of hope for justice, but the road ahead remains long, and Murphy's family and friends. We're still waiting to see if Pushka is guilty of Ashling Murphy's murder, but this might be the first step towards justice. During his trial, he is seen undergoing psychiatric supervision after attempting to take his own life during the trial. On January 26th, the courts held on to Pushka, the man suspected of killing Murphy. Just like before, the judge decided he should stay in jail and locked him up again. He waited in jail there until February 9th, waiting for his next chance and hoping to be released, but the judge again said, "No, not yet. Stay there a while longer." Still locked up in jail, he had to wait even longer, until March 9th, for his next chance to see freedom. Maybe then, maybe he'll get out. All the while, the investigation continued. The police kept digging, searching for clues and answers about Murphy's death and getting closer to the truth about Murphy's death. On April 25th, the Central Criminal Court decided and scheduled that Pushka's trial for Murphy's murder would happen on June 6, 2023. But it got delayed and was further postponed to October 2, 2023, because the defense wanted a Slovakian interpreter for Pushka. Well, if you ask me, it was very unnecessary, as the proceedings have been going on without one for a while now. On November 9, 2023, Pushka was found guilty of killing Murphy after a trial that spanned over 3 weeks. The trial revealed that Pushka attacked Murphy during her walk, stabbing her 11 times in the neck, inflicting a fatal wound, and leaving her in a ditch to die. CCTV footage showed Pushka following 2 other women on his bicycle hours before Murphy was killed. Additionally, he confessed to the Gardai in Tullamore 2 days after the incident. Surprisingly, Murphy unknowingly got the DNA of her killer under her fingernails, and it matched perfectly with Pushka's DNA. During the trial, Pushka attempted and tried to shift the blame to an unknown man in a mask, claiming the man had stabbed him in his stomach and then killed Murphy afterwards. The man was created in his illusions, as this was different from what he had told others before, contradicting his previous confessions. He must be best at giving different versions of events to different people. On November 17, 2023, Pushka was given a life sentence for the murder following his conviction. Just before the sentencing, the court listened to statements from Murphy's family and partner. Ryan Casey, Murphy's boyfriend, addressed Pushka, says, "Throughout your trial, you displayed smirks, smiles, and a complete lack of remorse, revealing the true nature of who you are, the embodiment of pure evil." These statements highlighted the impact of the crime on their lives. Full of hope and dreams, Ryan explained how Ashling and Ryan had recently met with an architect to design their future home. They envisioned a life together, filled with marriage, children, and the joy of building their own space. Ryan shared how even just imagining marrying Ashling brought a smile to his face. "I would have married her in a heartbeat," he expressed, the pain of their stolen future evident in his voice. Ireland has now lost its sense of innocence, as a crime of such magnitude was committed in broad daylight. The case ends here. Thanks for watching.